All right. We're live. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome, Eric. I'm Mariquita Solis, the live stream host of all-creatures.org. All-creatures.org was founded in 1998. It's a leading resource for faith-based animal rights veganism. Led by Executive Director Tams Nicholson, we provide free resources for people seeking to live compassionately towards all creatures. Our extensive library includes vegan sermons and commentaries, animal rights strategies, action alerts, events, and works by various vegan authors. We also sponsor websites for animal rights organizations. Our mission is to unite compassionate individuals worldwide who honor the dignity of all creatures. So today I'm excited to welcome Eric Mills. Eric is a veteran animal rights activist and founder of Action for Animals. His passion for animal welfare began in childhood, growing up on his grandparents' farm and becoming an avid bird watcher. After working with organizations like the Sierra Club and Greenpeace, he found his calling advocating for the humane treatment of animals in rodeos. Witnessing firsthand the injuries and distress these animals experienced, Eric became a relentless force for change, drafting and lobbying for legislation to regulate rodeo practices in California. Eric's direct action tactics, such as protests and inflatable kangaroos on Capitol steps, have earned him both admiration and criticism. However, his impact is undeniable. He has been instrumental in passing numerous laws to protect rodeo animals, including bans on horse tripping and the requirement for on-site veterinarians. So welcome, Eric. I'm very excited that you're here to talk with us. I can't even believe everything you've done and your courage in doing this. I really am astounded. And when I first heard about you, it was so exciting that you got back to me right away and said you would join. So on our all-creatures.org. So welcome, Eric.
Thank you so much, Marquita. I appreciate your wonderful work, and thank you for having me on. I might start off with it. Action for Animals. My friend Virginia Hanley was with the Fund for Animals for years. Used to joke that it sounded like a dating service for poodles. It's not. But I've been doing this work for almost 40 years now, and I've met some wonderful people. There's so many issues to take on. But animals help keep us human, really. And they deserve far better than they're getting, either through legislation or activism or programs such as yours. We need to get the word out there because the great majority of people really do care about animals. So I find that very satisfying and inspiring.
That's very true. Most people don't want to see animals hurt. So exactly. And that is a great point to start from. Let us know where you're watching from, y'all. Put your name and where you're watching from in the chat for us. And Erica, you're joining us from California, right?
Yes, ma'am. Oakland, not the end of the world, but you can see it from here. These days, and animals need all the help that they can get, for sure, especially with the current political situation. It's really critical that people speak up, let their voices be heard, and write those letters to the editors and make comments to all the articles online. You can really make a difference. When I first got involved in rodeo work was back in, I think, 1986. I went to the Hayward Police Officers Rodeo in Hayward, California, and almost right away, one of the bucking horses in the holding chute broke her leg and was down in the arena and couldn't get up. And so the cowboys used electric prods and kicked her for about a minute and a half to get her on three legs, and she hobbled out of the arena. No veterinarian present, and they borrowed a cop's gun somewhere and shot her to death.
Gosh.
Same day, 3 roping calves in the breakaway roping event ran headlong into the arena fence. There's no signage on the fence. I thought their necks had been broken. So I went to the board of directors and the police officers, and they promised me to have a veterinarian present at the following year's rodeo and signage on the fence. Well, I went to the rodeo. That was 1987, I guess. First calf out of the chute ran headlong into the fence and went down. No signage on the fence again. No veterinarian present. we called our own vet who got there and said you could touch the cat's forehead with his nose. It was broken so badly. So that's when the doo-doo hit the fan. And we ended up with the best rodeo policy, I thought, in the country at the time, and required on-site vets and advance notice of any upcoming events. And it was helpful to help set the stage for California's state bill, which I think is probably the best in the country, the most comprehensive, and darn near the only policy of its kind in the nation. Every state should have something similar. It requires either an on-site or on-call veterinarian at all rodeos. And I'm trying to have that amended to require an on-site vet at every rodeo. And bans of the use of the electric prods in the holding chutes, which is a common practice around the country. And most interestingly, I think, requires that injury reports be submitted to the state veterinary medical board within 48 hours so we can get a handle on what is happening to the animals and the changes that need to be made. So that's very encouraging.
Yeah, that is very encouraging. I don't know how you stay optimistic or how you stay afloat, emotionally. What would you say to someone that is struggling, a vegan that is finding out about this? How would you encourage them?
Yeah. Don't give up, make connections, get involved politically if you can stand it. It's painful sometimes, but there's some good legislators out there who do care. It should be noted too that the PRCA, Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association, has required veterinarians at all of their sanctioned events, 600 a year, but only since 1995, after 5 animals were killed at the California Rodeo Salinas. I was there. But it should be noted too that racetracks, endurance rides, horse shows, and the PRCA all require vets on site. Isn't that just common sense? You think that everybody would demand that. It helps the animals and keeps the vets busy. So if folks around the country would copy California's law, and it's on the books, it's Penal Code 596.7, I'd be happy to send a copy to anyone who would like one, because every state should have something like that, minimal. It should be noted that the PRCA, as I say, sanctions about 600 rodeos a year, but that's a drop in the bucket. According to the PRCA, there are some 2,000 to 5,000 rodeos held annually throughout this country. And most of them are small affairs or family affairs, not much publicity. And again, very few of them have veterinarians on site. That really needs to change.
My gosh, yes. It's hard to believe that there are no veterinarians on site and that this is, I don't know what is going on with humanity. It's not humane. It's not humanity. I mean, it's not our natural state of being.
No, we need work for sure. But
right.
On a brighter note, back in 1934, that's almost 100 years ago, the United Kingdom outlawed all of rodeo, and that includes Scotland, England, Wales, and soon followed by the Netherlands. So there's concern around the world. Australia and New Zealand, I'm in touch with a bunch of activists there, and in Canada, where rodeo is big. They're all trying to ban rodeo outright. Ironically, we have the Animal Welfare Act, the national law established in 1970, but it specifically exempts rodeos.
Oh.
That's just really outrageous. Rodeo bias is so inherently cruel. It is opposed by nearly every animal welfare organization on the planet, and others need to follow suit.
Right, exactly. So, Eric, when did you tell me about when you became vegan? When did you realize that make the connection?
Well, public disclosure here, I'm not vegan. I'm on the road.
Oh, okay.
I still eat dairy products and some seafood, but I try to stay away from meat as much as possible. Of course, the whole world should be vegan. So I commend you for that. And I need a little work on that area myself, far more than I'm doing. But all these things are interrelated, as you say. So.
Well, we can help you, believe me.
Good. I'll give your attention in the future. If I may, one of the best things I've gotten in my life over the years this work. Back in 1990, I got a support letter from Cesar Chavez, United Farm
Mhm.
Workers, who, by the way, he told me, we had several different conversations, one of which he told me that he had been vegetarian for a long time, as was his elderly mother. Few people know that. But he wrote me a wonderful letter back in 1990, 3 years before he died. So indulge me, I like to read a brief excerpt from it, which I think really touches upon everything we're trying to do here. He writes, 1990, kindness and compassion towards all living things is a mark of a civilized society. Conversely, cruelty, whether directed against human beings or against animals, is not the exclusive province of any one culture or community of people. Racism, economic deprival, dogfighting and cockfighting, bullfighting and rodeos are cut from the same fabric, violence. Only when we become nonviolent towards all life will we have learned to live well ourselves. Isn't that wonderful? We're just to
Yeah.
live by. We could all do well to follow those instructions.
Amen to that. Yes, I see we've got a lot of great comments over here. We got Patty coming in from Fairfax, California. We got Ellen. They're fighting steer tailing rodeos in her state of Illinois.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
we've got another comment from Patty. How about putting on a rodeo using dogs and cats? It would get people's attention and they would see how cruel it is. Of course, it would have to be animated and not use live animals. Yeah. Yeah, they could do that with AI now, make a little one.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah. Indeed, or dogs from the local animal shelter. The public would go bananas if
yeah,
they
they
did.
would. They
And what's the difference? What's
I
the
know.
difference?
What's the difference? Right. And we got Gary here from Mesa, Arizona, and Matthew A. King is here. Hey, Eric, nice to hear from you. Thanks for joining everyone. And please put your questions in the chat also, because we want to definitely get to those. And well, we have a lot to cover. So go ahead, Eric, if you
I can
if you
say it's not to see some familiar names out there for sure. Probably expect a few crank calls too. They're always out there to make it interesting. But as we talked earlier, everybody does seem to care about animals on some level, some more than others. A lot of it is just general public information. People are not aware of things that are going on. There's a brief mention of the bill in Illinois to ban steer tailing, something I've been working on for about 25 years now. It's one of the Charreada 9 standard events. That's the Mexican rodeo. Uh, and in steer tailing, a mounted cowboy, Charro, chases a steer down a long chute, grabs it by the tail, wraps the tail around his leg and stirrup, and then rides the horse off at an angle and attempts to slam the steer to the ground. Tails are routinely stripped to the bone. They even have a word for it, degloved, sometimes broken, even torn off. Horses may get their legs broken when the steers run the wrong way. It's not a standard ranching practice anywhere in this country, and it should be outlawed nationwide. I got it banned in 2 California counties, here in Alameda, where I live, and neighboring Contra Costa back in 1993. That was the year before we passed the state bill to ban horse stripping in California. And subsequently, at least a dozen other states have also banned that event. And the folks who do this quite often try to bring up culture and tradition. Well, for me, tradition justifies nothing. I mean, slavery, child abuse, rape, there are all kinds of traditions out there that need to go by the wayside.
hmm
Steer tailing certainly is one of them. So we're hoping to get another bill introduced soon in California to ban it. We had one back in 2002. Senator Liz Figueroa carried it for me. It got to the Senate floor and then was abruptly dropped inexplicably. I'm pretty sure that the Charles and the PRCA cowboys got together to help defeat it and work behind the scenes. So we need to try that again. Perseverance has had this battle. We're not going to win everything overnight that the animals deserve, but we have to keep looking for sure.
Right, and it's very disappointing because my parents really love the charros. I mean, the charro traditions in Mexico. So I hate to see that. I mean that part of it being brought in. But I mean, the bullfighting in Mexico. I know that they had banned it in Mexico City. I think I don't. So they are coming around. I mean, it was nice when I went to Mexico City to go to a cat cafe and, to be with people that really loved animals. So, I mean, there are animal rights groups out there. So to meet with them was a relief to see that they're working. But it's very hard. Yeah, because you have these traditions that are hard to get past, and people are so defensive about.
Yeah, I try to walk a fine line there too. I'm a big fan of Mexico and all things Spanish too. I was a Spanish language and literature major in college, so these things are close to my heart. It's a big reason I came to California was because of the Mexican influence. I have many Mexican American friends, but some things that are traditional just need to go. They call rodeo a tradition too, but rodeo is opposed by every animal welfare organization on the planet, pretty much. And that should be reflected in our laws. So that's why I would urge people to go on Google every day and just type in whatever, rodeo, yaradas. And then there are many articles online which are available for comments. So make those comments, forward to other people, write to your legislators. Most of them have a routine email that you can use to reach the legislators in every state. So just look them online and let them hear from you. Show up at their offices, write those letters, make those comments. Raise hell. You'll feel better, and it'll help the animals too.
Who are the legislators that are standing up for animals? I mean, would you say that you work with?
On a state level,
Hmm.
uh, here in California, there have been a number. Don Parada was former senator in Oakland, introduced the rodeo bill for me, which carried and passed almost unanimously. John Burton was another one who did the 49X, the horse stripping legislation from San Francisco. So the legislators are fairly aware here, and animals are in the news a lot, and they could be more so. And as I say, more people really need to write those letters. They're free, don't take much time, and a great way to educate the public. And you never know where you're going to find a supporter either.
Well, that's very true, and having those conversations is crucial. But I mean, every phone call makes a difference. Every letter, every comment, it all makes a difference. Well, tell us about what are las manganas? Manganas.
Uh, Loosely translated as horse stripping. As I said, the Chariota has 9 standard events, 3 of which involve roping the legs of running horses. The manganas, is when they lasso the horse by the front legs to bring her down. They're usually Arabian fillies at full speed, either from horseback or from on foot. And then a third event called piales, wherein they lasso a running horse by the hind legs and bring her to a sudden halt, which some folks think is even more harmful to the horses than the ones by their forelegs. But we got a state law passed here in California, the first of its kind, to ban the horse tripping event. They still lasso the horses by the front legs, but they say now that they let the rope go slack so the horse is not filled. But still, horses get tangled up in the rope sometimes and do fall regardless. So I think that should be outlawed as well, too. Again, that's not a standard ranching practice anywhere in the U.S. Not that we're any beacon to the world, but we could do a whole lot better than we've done. And we're doing well on some fronts. But as I say, I think rodeo should be outlawed nationwide. I mean, horses get injured a lot. Just imagine the public outcry, as you say, if they did to a dog what they do to the roping calves. And these are terrified babies, separated from their mothers under a lot of stress, and a baby. You don't do this to babies for a starter. The cowboys need to take their activity under a little closer scrutiny. There's even a group called Cowboys for Christ. Can you believe it? I'm not sure what they're praying for, because I'm sure that Jesus would not have approved of this mistreatment of his father's creation. So it has religious overtones too. And that's been a cross to bear too for me. It's been unsettling how little participation that the religious community has taken on these issues. They should be in the forefront of this and preach to the choir that this is not an appropriate way to treat animals. God didn't put us in here just for us to use and abuse at our whim. They have rights and lives and personalities of their own and should be treated as such. Just my opinion.
Right. Yes. And I was reading in one of the articles where someone was saying, well, these aren't babies. These are livestock, and they don't have the feelings that we have. I mean, it's terrible.
Yeah. And of course, they may be livestock, but of course they do have feelings and personalities and individual likes and dislikes. But they're extension of us, really. We're all animals somewhere down the path, some just more so than others. Um,
Right. We're getting a lot of comments over here. Ellen is saying, with the steer tailing, people are claiming we're going after the Mexicans. Illinois has proposed a steer tailing ban bill. Great. And Ellen's doing a lot of work. So, I mean,
yeah.
she's in all areas.
And Steve Hindy with Shark in Illinois has done a lot of work on rodeos generally and steer tailing most recently specifically, and was the effort behind the current bill in Illinois to ban steer tailing statewide. Hopefully it will pass. It certainly should. People just should go online for the many YouTube videos to see this stuff. It is brutal, brutal stuff. Legs quite often get broken too, along with the tails being stripped to the bone. Think how painful that must be. And for what? Entertainment? And to call that tradition and culture, that itself is an obscenity as far as I'm concerned.
I
So
know. I don't even know how it could start. How could, I mean, hurt, abusing animals, abusing other creatures ever even begin as entertainment? I don't understand that.
yeah, and the cowboys in Charles, they're well intentioned, I think, for the most part. They don't intentionally harm the animals, but it's inherent in the events. That's what needs to be taken into consideration and to stop it. It's real easy.
Well, that is what Bobby Sudd said when he would speak with the people at the rodeo. They wouldn't recognize that it was abuse or it was hurting the animals. You know, they didn't understand. Of course, I mean, I don't know how you wouldn't see that, but I remember speaking with him, and he said that. Um, anyway, we got Claudia saying, "Thank you for all your efforts to end these cruel practices. And tradition is a lame excuse for these animal abusers from Samara." And then here's a good comment. We can take some encouragement from the fact that we never thought we would see circuses without animal acts. Persistence indeed can work, says Patty.
Indeed. And Patty's right. Patty's doing great work too with the vegan community here in the Bay Area. And I send her
Wonderful.
kudos. Oh, I'm reminded too of a wonderful quote from Dr. Temple Grandin. She's the animal behaviorist
Hmm.
Colorado State. She has this wonderful line. It says, "The single worst thing you can do to an animal emotionally is to make it feel afraid. Fear is so bad for animals, I think it's worse than pain." Now that, if you take that to heart, and I do, then it automatically means you don't do rodeos, you don't do circuses, you don't do chariatas. I mean, this is just basic common human decency, it seems to me. And we
You're right.
need to extend that to creatures other than our own species for sure.
Right. And exactly. And Matthew's leading the way, Matthew King, a King. And also he's saying you've been a great mentor for him and his activism against rodeo.
Yeah,
Um,
done great
so,
work.
and
So thanks for
yeah.
that.
And Claudia is saying, which is true, traditions can change. Let's make new ones based on kindness and nonviolence, right? And
Amen.
yeah, I mean, all of us coming together can. And William is saying, thank you for all you do. You're an inspiration to those of us trying to stop the abuse. I know you are an inspiration. It was very hard for me to read all the articles and to take in the cruelty. And so, I mean, you must have, I mean, you are strong. That, your cat in the picture, what was his name? I
Yeah.
can't remember right off.
Bo. Bo.
Bo, he's with you in spirit, I think.
Yeah.
Really, standing with you.
Animals help keep us human. They're great to have around the house. And I still see and hear them all the time. I turn and I catch them. But I said, oh, that's Bo or Gracie, or Bandit, who've all been gone for years. They hit you right here in the heart. And yeah, makes life worth living, quite frankly.
Right. Amen. And I know that they're still there with you. because I mean, I've heard so many stories of people, this, the same thing, knowing that their pets are there or seeing their spirits there, feeling them.
for sure.
So,
Oh, on that rodeo front, I might mention too that the Humane Society of the United States and the American Humane Association have a joint policy condemning rodeo from 1982. Now, why hasn't that carried more weight over the years? HSUS used to do a lot of anti-rodeo work. Of late, not so much. So I'm hoping they'll take up that issue again because it's a big one. And there's so many rodeos around the country just throughout most of the year. And as I say, most of them are monitored, no vet present, and baby animals quite often calves being abused. And then they have stupid events like wild cow milking and mutton busting, pig scrambles, which the animals are terrified, which I always think of that Temple Grandin quote. Says, just being afraid is more harmful to the animals than actual physical pain. So we really need
right,
to keep that in mind when we do these events. When people think it's fun and cute. But when I first saw that wild cow milking contest, I said, my God, it's a gang rape. They had two cowboys that mugged this poor cow and took it to the ground. Another one tried to put women's lace panties on the hind legs. Rodeo is so sexist, for a starter. And it's almost all men. The women are allowed to do just the barrel racing, and the cowboys probably hate them for that. But these are not real cowboys. They're professional athletes abusing animals to make a dollar. And it's just an exercise in domination, I think. It's not a sport. True sport denotes willing, equally matched participants. Rodeo does not qualify. Again, it's just a macho, mostly hype exercise in domination, and it needs to end worldwide. I've had fantasies about running all the cattle the night before the rodeo, or maybe super glue all the chutes shut before the rodeo begins. What would they do? Who knows? Don't quote me on that.
no, well, um, I don't know. I mean, I don't see many advertisements or many things against rodeos. I see more things, of course, about spay and neuter and everything. So this is something that really needs to come out more. And then like you were saying, the Humane Society, and I haven't seen any ads from them or anything about rodeos that I can recall.
They've done very little. PETA has been doing a lot of good rodeo work over the years, especially shout out to my friend Jen O'Connor, who works at PETA. She's been wonderful, makes a lot of good comments, and they picket various rodeos. They just had the big Tucson rodeo recently, had major picket lines there. Houston rodeo is making headlines this week only because one of the cows got loose and ran through town. But they just tried to make a joke of it, but it's not a joke as far as the animal's concerned. And it's a matter of life and death. And if we're going to eat
Yeah.
them, they at least deserve a decent life before they get to the dinner table, do they not? And rodeo is part of the equation that needs to be erased.
Yeah, I know. And I was actually at my college campus the other day, and I saw a sign for a rodeo, and I thought, my gosh, and I feel like I'm sure there people will be people. I mean, I hope in my heart there'll be people there protesting it, you know. So I have gone to a couple of protests. The last one I went, it was just it was, I can't remember his last name, Corey and Beth Anderson. But we went, and there was just the three of us, and really people laughed at us. There was, I think we got one or two cars, that actually honked and supported us, but most of us, and who cares? I mean, we didn't care. There was a lady that took us, that said, get off this property. We weren't, I mean, Corey, now I wish I could remember his last name. He does a lot of, he's really on top of the rodeos over here in the Atlanta area. He knew exactly where we needed to be, but she was saying she was going to call the police and all this, and the police did come and made sure that we safely got back to our cars, so, but I mean, it was stressful because she said, well, if you don't get off, then what's coming next or something. But I mean, that was after we were, anyway, it was disappointing. I mean, people were just, it's disappointing to see heartlessness, you know
I think part of this is these folks are feeling guilty. They know
Mm-hmm.
that they're doing something maybe that they shouldn't be doing, and they get on the defensive about it, and then take the offense on people out there trying to do the right thing and call their attention to it. So you probably planted some seeds and don't know it. So it's important that we bear witness, even if you're out there by yourself. You never know. So I just got word recently from one of my Charro friends. He's a very decent guy, but he tells me there's something like 70 Charro associations in California throughout the entire state, and they annually put on around 800 full-scale chariatas, plus scores of the steer tailing only events. And it's unbeknownst to the general public. Nobody knows this is going on. I went to one in Sonoma, in Southern California, excuse me, Southern Alameda County, back in the early 90s, I guess. Have you ever heard a horse scream? I hadn't until that day. These were Arabian fillies they rented from the killer buyers they're going to slaughter, and they use them in the chariot beforehand. And the horses that were screaming were used in the Magnanis event, where they're being met by the front legs and had their legs yanked out from under them at full gallop and hit the ground. Brutal, brutal stuff. That's when I had a state bill introduced to ban horse stripping throughout California, and it failed that year for all the wrong reasons. So that's when I went to the Alameda County Board of Supervisors and got them to pass the county ordinance banning both horse stripping and steer tailing. And as a result, the Sonoma area closed down and moved out to Fresno. So maybe it helped some, at least it got rid of some folks. And there's some complaints that I'm putting local businesses out of business by getting rid of the chariota. I said, look, if your business is based upon animal cruelty, it deserves to be put out of business. Sorry, animals come first in my book.
Well, what's the biggest turnaround you've had? I mean, have you had people, I mean, have you seen people feeling guilty or feeling upset about their actions and switched over?
Not many. I'd love to see a lot more. But most people go to rodeo. It's the old West. It's American tradition. It's cowboys. You can play dress up and act stupid and get away with it. But when the animals get hurt, people, it stops them in their tracks and they're doing some thinking. But it's routine. I mean, animals are fearful. That's enough to stop the rodeo right there, I think. If Dr. Grandin is correct, and I think she is, they are afraid of this. And, you know, it's all hype to begin with. Real cowboys never routinely rode bulls or wrestle steers or rode bareback or practiced calf roping as a timed event. The steer wrestling event was invented by black cowboy Bill Pickett. He's even a Bill Pickett Black Rodeo, which comes here every year. But his uh, invention at the time, he had seen bulldogs grab bulls by the nose in a powerful bite
Oh,
to stop them in the tracks. So he tried that on the steers, and he would bite them in the nose to take them down. Hence the steer wrestling's event, other name, bulldogging. You know, but real cowboys never did that, and it sounds rather unpleasant too for steer and the cowboy. But now they no longer bite, but they still wrestle them to the ground. And for what? It has nothing to do with ranch life. It's all bogus hype. Again, that macho exercise and domination, and it's destroying the planet in many ways. It just needs to stop. Here, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South America, wherever this stuff goes on, people need to speak up and write letters, raise hell, to make a difference.
right. Well, there is a lady that ended up suing the school district, Peggy Hilden. Can you tell us about Peggy?
Ooh, is Peggy online? Could she tell us?
She's the one that I guess that with her son went to the rodeo.
Yeah, they were having field trips taking kids to rodeos, which I think is a form of child abuse, not only animal abuse, but to present this stuff to children and to say that this is an okay, admirable thing to do. So I was raising some cane. We have a California state laws that you're not exposed to kids to cruelty. So they
Hmm.
paid sued on that count. I'm not sure how it turned out. I think that it was tossed, which raised a very good point. I thought, I mean, kids should not be being exposed to this stuff. Again,
Yeah, I mean that's a great angle, you know, to
And kids especially are in tune, I think, with animals. They consider them their brothers and sisters, but in many cases when they're young. And so they're really upset when the animals get hurt. But to do it in the name of entertainment and tradition. And another big thing, follow the money. Boycott rodeo sponsors, their advertisers, and supporters, and follow the money. That's what a lot of this is about. And that can make a big difference too. I mean, Coca-Cola is a big sponsor of rodeos, and some of the cigarette companies, bad for human health as well as the animals too. So people keep making those points and on picket lines, and again in letters and comments. So we'll hit them in the pocketbook. That's what this country understands more than most anything else, apparently. Sad to say. But we should be taking the moral high ground on this and speak up for the animals and stop this cruelty.
Right. Yeah, we definitely need to stop the cruelty. And people don't understand about the horses that get hurt. I mean, we've talked about that, but that's not something that people think about when they go to the rodeos, that all the animals are in danger and the
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Horses suffer some of the most. I mean, keep in mind, I mean, racetracks around the country are responsible for the deaths of, on average, about 2,000 racehorses a year who die on the track or in training. And horses are highly social animals, and yet they're kept in isolation almost their entire lives, except when racing or training with other horses. But to keep a social animal like that in isolation in the barn should be a law against that. And I'm from Kentucky, so I know horses a bit, and tobacco, and liquor. The entire state's economy is based upon animal abuse and public health hazards. Go figure. Again, follow the money. It's always about the dollar, it seems. Look at current politics. Everybody is for sale, apparently. We need to do a whole lot better, folks. Democracy right now is at great risk from all the degenerates that we have in Washington right now, and all the people being fired indiscriminately across the board, and threats to drop out of NATO. I mean, all this stuff is interrelated. We have some of the most progressive animal welfare laws in the country, but they're all at risk with Trump and his hugely unqualified cabinet. Every damn one of them. None of them deserves to be there. So people need to speak up about that too. It's depressing to talk about and see. I'm sick of seeing that orange yellow mug on the camera all the time. But we have to speak up. Time for a recall. Do something because America and democracy are at great risk right now, along with all the people and animals therein. We've been sold a bill of goods, and we need to get back on track. Now's the
But
time.
we have to use our voices for animals. And really, what you said was very important about seeing who's sponsoring these events and talking to them directly, sending them an email and saying that this is not right, that I'm not going to support the company. I'm not going to support your company anymore until you do something about it. Tell me what you're going to do about this.
Sure.
Tell me, and there's a lot of power in the pocketbook. So definitely finding out that, and and your legislature, writing your representatives and going and talking to them. So, how did you even become involved in? I mean, you also worked with, was it Greenpeace and Sierra? Is that
Yeah.
right? Sierra Club?
Yeah, back in the early days, back in the 80s, I did a lot of volunteer work with those folks, Earth Island Institute, Friends of the Earth, but especially with the Fund for Animals in San Francisco, who at the time, the uh, coordinator of that office was the late Virginia Hanley, who was the best animal activist I've ever known in my life. And funny, unfortunately, she died much too young, but I did a lot of volunteer work there, and she used to spend a lot of time in Sacramento. And she's on the board of directors for an organization called PAWPAC, which followed all the animal welfare legislation presented each year and all the votes taken. And then they would go through our 160, 40, 80, all the state legislators, the senators and the assemblymen, and give them a letter grade at the end of the year on how they did for animals, A, B, C, D, F. And unfortunately, the Democrats are far more supportive of animal issues than the Republicans are. I'm not quite sure why, except again, follow the money, because you talk to them one-to-one and they all do care about animals, so they tell me anyway. But it's reflected in their votes, and quite often they don't follow through with what they say. So watch what they do. and follow them. I just saw that the Republican caucus has been instructed to call off all local town halls, unlike the Democrats who are going full speed ahead with that. Our legislators need to hear from us. They need to be responsive. They need to show up and be told when they're wrong and when they're right, and then act accordingly. But everyone really should get involved legislatively. It's not pleasant work, but it's really critical to keep democracy as we know it alive and to help animals and the environment as much as possible. They're all at great risk worldwide, so we can make a difference. Please do.
What's the first start? Like if you want to get involved in the legal process, I mean, it seems like so much. I wouldn't even know where to begin. What would you recommend to someone?
I would recommend finding a state bill that you're concerned about, either pro or con, and then to go to some of those hearings in the state capitol, wherever that might be, Sacramento in our case. You can find all this information online on Google, or talk to some of the big animal groups who follow legislation. They will point you in the right direction on what needs to be done. And there's no lack of things to do for sure. And one voice can often make a difference. It's all it takes. People need to say, "Oh, I never thought about that before," but most people do care. And when they care and see what's happening to animals, they will quite often take action to rectify the situation.
Yes, and you're right. But sometimes, I mean, what is the process? How hard is it to get legislation passed? I mean, for me, I don't know much about the legal process. It seems like it's a long process. What are you looking at when you have a piece of legislation? I mean, what's the timeline if it were to pass?
Okay. Uh, the legislators tend to pay more attention to their own constituents than they do people from other areas of the state or out of state. So find out who your local legislators are, the senators, the assembly members. They all have local offices. You can call or just show up, set up an appointment to discuss the legislation that you would like them to consider introducing. And if it's something that could make them look good, will be helpful to your cause too. The issue itself, of course, should be enough, because there are plenty of animal issues out there that need addressing. So yeah, just go to your home reps first. They're the ones who are most liable to take on your issue, and maybe help them with their campaigns. You can do legislative alerts or writing or doing door-to-door canvassing for them if you like what they represent. Or if you don't, you can go fight against them and work for the opposition too. It's all a long-term a game, and the players change every few years. So I have to keep that in mind, who's in office and who's not, who's running for the next higher up. But there's some really good animal people out there, and you can find them out generally, as I say, by contacting the big organizations that you work with, Humane Society of the U.S. or PETA, In Defense of Animals, folks like the American SPCA. Many of those groups are involved in the legislative process, and they can put you in touch with other folks on how to go about it.
Okay, so you really wouldn't have to know much. You would just say, this is where I want to focus on. Let me go contact them and they're going to teach me.
Yeah. And then you will learn a lot in the process as you go along too, which is very useful. So the democratic process is wonderful when it works well and people are committed and have the facts. But the opposition, of course, will be coming up with their version of the story too. So you have to be prepared with your factual data to counter whatever their arguments might be. But people really can make a difference. And I would urge everyone to get involved politically and follow what's going on in your state capital.
Right. Well, let me know let's see if we have any questions. We've got some more time here. Tell us about the live animal food markets. Now, you've been working on those for, I mean, a very long time.
Oh boy. Every year, the California State Fish and Game Department, or Fish and Wildlife Department, now named, allows permits for the importation of about 2 million American bullfrogs and 300,000 freshwater turtles for human consumption. They're all non-native to California. We've had at least 24 necropsies done on the animals, and they are all diseased and or parasitized, and it is illegal to import such products or to sell them for human consumption, yet it's business as usual. We found cases of E. coli, salmonella, pastorella, even one case of malaria,
Hmm.
all, all potentially fatal in humans. Most of the bullfrogs, well, probably all, are taken from the wild. Uh, Almost all of the turtles, excuse me, that's not true. Most of the bullfrogs, uh, they do come from the wild, just most. Uh, but all of the turtles are taken from the wild also, depleting local populations. And the market animals are kept in just god awful conditions, dirty, often without food or water, stacked upside down, butchered while fully conscious. And adding to the problem, some do-gooders will buy them in bulk and then release them into local waters, which is illegal. But they think they're doing a good thing, but they're not. When they do this, the non-native animals, the bullfrogs especially, uh, displace the natives, they eat the natives, and they spread all sorts of diseases and parasites to other animals. Most troubling, the bulk of the bullfrogs, I think about 64% in one study, test positive for a lethal chytrid fungus, which is called, I have it written down here somewhere, uh, Batrachochytrium dendrobatitis, great name, or BT. As I say, the majority are infected with this fungus, and when these animals release into the wild, they spread it to other creatures who catch the disease and die. We've lost over 100 species of amphibian species worldwide as a result of this chytrid fungus in the last 100 years. This business really needs to stop. And again, we've stepped on a lot of Asian toes here because these live markets are found mostly in various Chinatowns in Los Angeles, in Sacramento, in Oakland, in San Jose, uh, but across the state. As I say, they're kept in just terrible conditions, and we just need to get rid of them. I sympathize with the Asian culture. We've been terrible to the Asian community over the years, but it is not racism. It's trying to help animals and the environment and to stop species extinction and for the public health. So it's an everybody win situation, it seems to me. But these markets continue, even though they are illegal. We need some serious lawsuits to stop it before we lose all these creatures. If anybody has seen these markets, I recommend that they take a tour and see for yourselves how bad it really is. So I don't know if Georgia has these things, but many large cities around the country do. Chicago and New York and Miami, I know there. Oh, and speaking of things, so recently too, going on Google, Georgia, or your home place, uh, has a Jariata organization there. So this stuff is mostly in the Western United States, but it's all around the country. People just need to be aware and then to take action to make things better. It's not that hard.
Right. And but you've actually made thing a lot better since. I mean, you've come a long way, Eric, for the animals.
Didn't do it by myself for sure. There's a whole sea of people out there who share my concerns, including a number of legislators. And going through the process, it is time consuming, but many people do care, and it's certainly worth the effort. And one state can set the example for others. When California passed the horse tripping ban back in, what, 1994, it was the only one. Within 6 years, 12 other states had passed a ban. Nebraska also banned steer tailing across the board, the only state to have done so. So I find that very encouraging. It might be even easier in some states which are not seen as particularly Western or Asian in tradition, whatever the culture might be. Hopefully you can stay away from the cultural angle because, I mean, kindness to animals should be across the board for everybody. Is it not? I mean, look at what the Buddhists have done for animals around the world and the vegetarian society. But all these things are interrelated. So you do anything good anywhere, it seems to spread to other areas too. So keep that in mind.
Right. I mean, like Cesar Chavez was really a change maker, and that was exciting when you were reading his letter. You know, that
Yeah.
was a big moment.
Yeah, he's a big hero. And I love the fact that both he and his mother were vegetarians. And he said, not for health reasons, for ethical reasons. People need to take those words to heart because he was right on the money. R.I.P.
Right. Yeah. And he did a lot. I mean, the suppression of minorities. And I mean, you're right, because this is not just about animals. It's hurting all people. I mean, it's against women when you're, oh, I mean, these are crimes against humanity. It's oppression of beings. I mean, of these are not worthy beings. I mean, who is worthy? You know, we all are worthy. So we have to stand up. We have to be the voice for others that are not able to speak. And and please, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, because we've got a few more minutes here. So,
Good. Well, I hope your viewership is paying attention, Rakita. I think you're doing great work, and I'm really most appreciative. Education is three-quarters of the battle. Just getting the issues out there. Many people are completely unaware of live markets and chariots generally, or they don't go to the rodeo. They don't, you know what the concerns are. And I think generally the great majority of people would be supportive of what we're trying to do if they have the information. And there's so much misinformation online now these days too, with all the internet, some of it just outright lies, which is kind of hard to deal with. So get to the truth and get it out there. That's hard. The media could be very supportive of this if they did do more stories about animals and animal welfare and our relationships with the non-human brethren and sisters on the planet. Those they all deserve our support and a better way of life than many of them are now going through.
right. Well, here we have a question. Speaking of following the money, does anyone know why our local Native American tribes are opposed to a rodeo ban? I've never heard of a Native American rodeo. Is it they supply the cattle and horses?
Oh, yeah. I'm afraid there is a Native American rodeo circuit. They're involved, especially in San Diego, where they're trying to pass a city ordinance to ban all of rodeos. They formed a coalition with the Native American rodeo, the gay rodeo, the black rodeo, the standard PRCA variety of rodeos. So they have this coalition, and more power to them, I guess. But they're dead wrong on this one because the Native American rodeos are cruel too. Again, the animals are being caused great fear and harm, and deaths are not unknown. Again, the lack of veterinary care at most of these rodeos, including theirs. So there's a long history of this that we have to account for and be responsible for, but that doesn't justify it. It needs to stop. I don't care who's doing it. I don't care if it's going to be God or Jesus. I'm going to be on a picket line trying to stop this stuff. And I hope to see everybody else there too.
Right. Well, I didn't know that either about Native American rodeos. Here's another question. Do you think it's because they own ranches where they raise the animals and make money off the sales to rodeos?
Yeah, I think there's something to that. Some of those bucking bulls and horses are worth, I mean, tens of thousands of dollars too. So it's a big investment for the cowboys. And some of them, I suppose it's better than going to slaughter, but still having to live a life in the arena, fearful with spurs and hot shots and punches and tail twisting, uh, and a raucous crowd. It's really frightening for the animals, bulls and cattle.
I
It's
know
hard.
it's horrible. And Ellen is saying with the tailing ban in Illinois, even if it passes, we've had horrible enforcement of laws. We have this. I mean, have the states that pass the steer tailing been able to enforce it?
Well, as I said, there's only one state so far which has banned steer tailing. That was Nebraska back in 2008. And I haven't heard any reports about enforcement and violations thereof. I'll be looking into that. But hopefully other states will pass a ban too. And people from out of Illinois should also jot the Illinois legislature and threaten them with a boycott for a starter. As I say, they understand money, if nothing else. But don't support animal cruelty Again, steer tailing is not a standard event anywhere in this country, standard ranching event, and it's brutal, brutal, brutal. I think it's one of the worst events in all of rodeo, worse than horse tripping and worse than any of the standard rodeo events, except maybe roping, but close. And it's unnecessary. And so hopefully Illinois is going to get this passed, and then other states will follow suit. And then there will be some enforcement nationwide, hopefully. That's half the battle, of course.
Right. Well, you're doing such amazing work, Eric. Where can people get a hold of you? Um,
Oh, I started saying usually the local ice cream parlor, but that probably would not be a good idea. I spend too much time over there. Uh, I have an email address. Let me give you both my mailing address and email. It's Action for Animals, P.O. Box 20184, Oakland, California, 94620. And my email address is AFA, Action for Animals, at gmail.com. I'd be happy to correspond with anyone. So requiring me, we could trade some notes on how to help animals. That would be great.
Wonderful. And I also want to remind everybody to visit us at www.all-creatures.org and help support this program and others by making a one-time donation or a recurring donation of any amount. And wow, I mean, this is a lot to take in, but I feel very hopeful, Eric, because you are really up on your facts and you're really working hard. And I mean, this dedication and perseverance that you've done throughout the years is really paying off. I mean, and I see that you don't expect everything in one day. You have great resilience.
It would be nice. And I'm only 31. And Jack, he was 39, he said. Yeah. Getting toward the end of the campaign, maybe, but I think me and my cohorts have made some differences. Again, just public information, making them aware of the issues. As I say, most people do care, and that helps keep me going more than anything else, I think. But people are very creative, and we can come up with other entertainment, certainly, that don't use nor abuse animals. I mean, boxing, football, basketball, baseball, all of that. People are in the arena, the playing field by choice. That's not true of the animals. Everything we use the animals for, they are forced to do, whether it's in rodeos, the charianas, the live markets, the racetracks, the bull ring, cockfighting. They're not there because they want to be. They are made to do what they do and perform, and it's usually a short and bloody life, and they and we deserve far better. So let's make it happen, folks. Again, Mark, I really thank you for all the work that you do and for the people who watch your show and call in. I encourage you all to support All Creatures with your financial support. Can't do this stuff for free. It makes a difference. The opposition does have a lot of money, and they're also making money off the backs of the unfortunate animals. So we need to change that. And programs such as this, I think, are a great step in the right direction. So thank you again for that.
Well, thank you, Eric, and I want to thank everybody else. Ellen is saying thank you both for your work. I want to thank Ellen for watching. CT, we had William, Patty, Claudia, and Matthew, Samara, Gary, and yeah, I'm gonna borrow some of your bravery and courage and your resilience, Eric, and I think everyone else here can borrow some too. um, get your energy, and we will. I'm gonna looking forward to my next rodeo protest, even if it's just me. Yeah, so you've really inspired me. I'm very appreciative. So thank you so much for joining us, and make sure give us your email again one more time.
AFA stands for Action for Animals at gmail.com.
Wonderful. All right. So there it is. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Eric. This has been a true honor. And I hope you all have a very peaceful day, and we'll just keep those animals in our heart, sending them love.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
All right. Bye bye, everybody.